Hey guys, today we're going to be making our own texture monsters. We're going to start by taking our white piece of paper and writing our name on the back. I'm going to try and make sure my name is in the middle of my page because we're going to do some cutting out. Next, I'm going to give you some of these cool texture rubbing plates, and we're going to experiment with these to create some different textures on our paper that we'll use to create our textured monsters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one and make sure my name is flipped over. And I'm going to take my crayon and put my paper on top of the texture rubbing. And then I'm going to use my crayon and rub all over on top of where that plate was. You can see that it gives you different textures depending on what the picture or pattern is on the texture rubbing. It's kind of like if you go outside and you lay your paper on the ground and use your crayon to rub, and you get the texture of the concrete or the gravel. So I'm going to do that and fill up my whole page with all different colors and textures. I can mix my colors. I can think about only using a few different types of colors, or I can use rainbow colors. But I want to fill every part of that paper with different textures. I can even overlap my colors a little bit too. Then it kind of creates a different type of texture. I'm going to keep going until my whole paper is filled up, switching back and forth between the different texture plates that I have to work with. Now that I've got my entire paper filled with different textures, I'm going to flip it over and use my pencil to draw the shape of the monster that I want to make. I want to make sure that I create a shape that fills up the whole piece of the paper, not just one small shape in the middle. I want to make sure I have enough room to add to my monster and it's just not a tiny monster. I decided I wanted the top part of my monster to kind of have a curvy line and then be straight on the sides. So I'm going to draw that out before I cut that out. Notice how I'm not cutting very much off of my piece of paper because I want my monster to be as big as possible, so that way I have lots of room to add all the fun features of the monster. I'm going to cut until I have a cool monster shape that I can work with and add different monster facial features to. Now that I've got the body of my texture monster made, I'm going to take a scrap piece of white paper and a scrap piece of black paper, and I'm going to start cutting out its mouth and nose and eyes and anything else I want to add to my monster. I'm going to take my white piece of paper and start by cutting out my eyes. Since I'm folding my paper in half, I'm actually cutting out two big ovals at the same time, so that way I got my two eyes for my monster. But my monster could have way more than two eyes if it wanted, but I don't want to cut more than two pieces of paper at a time. I'm going to cut a smaller oval out of my black paper, so that way I can put it in the middle of my white oval for the pupil of the eye. I'm going to go and I'm going to add eyes and a mouth and horns, maybe even some spots or stripes, or maybe some spikes or some hair. There's so many different things that you could add to your monster to add a little more detail and give it some personality. So we'll get started and see what we can come up with and what kind of monster we want to draw. Remember that if I want to cut two shapes at the same time, I just have to fold my paper in half and then cut. And then I've got my horns are the same because I cut them all at the same time. Now that I've got my horns, my eyes, and my mouth all cut out and glued on, I'm gonna add some eyebrows to make it look angry or surprised or happy or sad. Or even funny with one eyebrow raised. So I just cut 2 long rectangles and I'm gonna decide how I want my monster to look. I think I'm gonna make him look more surprised and happy with his eyebrows up in the middle. If you wanted to make him mean or angry, you could always make his eyebrows pointing down toward the middle like he's angry. Then I'm gonna take my black scraps and I'm gonna cut some more circles out and start giving him some spots as well, because why not have spots on your monster? Use all the scraps you can and add anything you can think of to this monster, because your monster can be as silly or goofy or crazy as you want. So add those details to make your monster exactly like you would picture it and give it its own personality. Now that I've got everything I want glued on my monster, I'm going to take my Sharpie and just add a few more details, like some outlines of more spots instead of adding more solid spots, just for fun, to give it a little bit more. So I'm just drawing small circles to go with my bigger circles that are solid because they're made out of construction paper. So you can use that Sharpie to kind of outline or give anything a little extra detail. I went back in and I decided to add some stripes to my horns because that looked like a fun thing to do. Polka dots and stripes? What an awesome, fun monster. I can't wait to see what you guys make with your monsters by using your textures and then using the shapes and lines that we know to give your monster a fun personality and make it your very own. I can't wait to see what you guys do. Now let's have some fun making our own monsters.